Hi guys, my name is Victoria Chaperone. I worked alongside Cami Gooch, Sarah Feria on aggression and sports performance in males and females, which is on chapter 9. So the first slide is aggression versus assertive behavior. I wanted to make sure that I identified both because there's a lot of times that these two get really confused between people. They often use it incorrect. So aggression is the infliction of an adverse stimulus, physical, verbal, or gestural upon one by a person by another. It is not an attitude, it's a behavior. The behavior has to reflect an internal act or action. So the action or the acts of these behaviors must intimidate, embarrass, or dispute another athlete. So interacting with another living person has to be an aggressive behavior. Now, in order to be an aggressive behavior, it has to be interacting with one another, with another living thing. I was watching a couple videos on YouTube, and one of the pro tennis players got really angry after a match, and he slammed down his tennis racket, and he broke it. Apparently, that was not an aggressive behavior, because it wasn't towards a living thing. He didn't hit his racket towards someone else. So there are three types of aggressions. It's hostile or reactive aggression. It's pretty much what it sounds like. Instrumental aggression, biological or instinctive theory, which I'll go over in the next slides. And assertiveness. So assertive is a behavior which enables a person to act in or her own best interest, to stand up for him or herself without undue of anxiety, to express his or her honest feelings comfortably, or to exercise his or own right without denying the rights of others. So the book goes on, and many articles that I read also are productive assertion. So productive assertion is a forceful but acceptable behavior, such as blocking a football. You block a football and happen to hit the person. It's an assertive behavior towards the game. It's not like you went revengefully to go and hit that person or harm that other athlete. So there are 4 criteria of how this in order to know if it was aggression or assertive. So if any of these fit, and any of these 4 criteria fit, it's an assertive behavior. So it has to be all 4 criteria. If one doesn't fit, it could be very well an aggressive behavior. So the 4 criteria is it goal directed? So was this foul, was it goal directed? Was it revenge? Not intended to harm or injure. Legitimately force sometimes can be viewed as aggression, and I read an article also that legitimately force, so like if you use too much force, that's the reason why sometimes we have fouls. Sometimes it's not like we're trying to harm the person, like a slide tackle in soccer. It's not like we're trying to hurt that person because we hate them or we're angry at them or anything like that. It's because we used a little bit too much force. We're getting too aggressive, but it's not aggressive, it's assertive. Do not break the rules of the game. That's where the fouls come in. So aggression, criteria and theories. Instrumental aggression is the purpose. The purpose is to achieve some kind of goal. Harm to another might occur, but not on purpose. So it wasn't on purpose. Again, like that slide tackle might have been not on purpose. It was a forceful act from yourself. So Sarah Holt, the article that I read is by Sarah Holt, Aggression in Sports, Female versus Males, states the intent to harm remains an internal facet of the aggressor's motivation in performing the action. I really, really liked that quote because it pretty much states what instrumental aggression is. So an example that the book gave was a baseball pitcher. So the baseball pitcher wants to throw the ball inside the base, or inside of the base, inside them, for strategic reasons, not to hurt the player, not to revenge some kind of weird thing that they might have towards each other, but because of a strategic reason. So instrumental aggression can also be viewed as a strategic theory. Okay. Hostile. Hostile is exactly what it sounds like. It's the purpose is to harm another person intentionally. I want to hurt them. I want to make sure they're on the sidelines. I want to tear their ACL, something like that. Purposely injuring another player can result in penalty or punctive measures. You lose when you abuse. That's what my coach used to say a lot too, and I read it in other articles as well. So the fact about the hostile theory is that both females and male athletes have been found to react less aggressively to violent visual stimuli than non-athletes. So obviously I think that makes more sense, because since you're a pro, you have other rewards. You're more more mature, I guess, in the sport than non-athletes. So they're more likely to take things offensively than pro athletes. Sports by nature is competitive, so that's why it's very hard to know whether it's aggression on purpose or not aggression on purpose. So in the athlete's best interest to exhibit aggression when appropriate. So obviously ice hockey is very competitive and it's a very aggressive sport. There are a couple of articles and interviews that I was researching that it asked the player, the athlete, that played hockey, why do you continue to be aggressive? And you must be aggressive to be in the sport, otherwise people quit. Assertive athletes. Now we can talk about productive assertion. Forceful yet acceptable behavior. So not to do anything with emotion, nothing to do with revenge, nothing to do with I'm angry, or it's still a behavior, but it's not linked with an emotion, where aggressiveness is dealt with an emotion, even if it's not intentional. Many sports require some type of proactive assertion, such as football, hockey, and water polo, or MMA. What we just talked about, by nature, sports are competitive, and these are the most competitive ones that I researched: football, hockey, water polo, and MMA. Obviously, MMA, you're like hitting someone in the face, but if you see after, they high five each other, they hug each other. So obviously it's not something that I wanted to hurt you, I want to kill you. But in a certain way, it's very aggressive. Some examples that the book gave was body checking. So a body check, as long as it meets the criteria of the game, as long as it's appropriate, such as like one of the criteria in proactive assertion, then it's legal. Now, if you use that body check towards an emotion because you're angry at something or at that player, or you're frustrated, then it becomes more of an aggressive emotion behavior. So to keep going, the acts can become aggressive when the athlete's intention is to injure the person, which we talked about, which is hostile theory. And then they have hard play versus foul play. So basically, hard play is a proactive assertion, which is, it's competitive by nature. You have to be somewhat aggressive or stand your ground, being appropriately and respectfully towards the game and the other athletes. Versus foul play, which is more into the hostile, like injuring someone. So, lies in the resort of the latter of the violence of malicious. And then you have revenge versus rage. Okay? Getting at a specific approach to prove something. I found biological instinct theory very interesting, so I put that in here, because according to the scientists, the theory explains that aggression is a nature innate characteristic of all persons developed through evolution. So basically what it's saying is that by nature, you could be, by your genes, could be a very aggressive person. Scientists found that children whose biological parents were conducted of criminal, I don't know if I put conducted, conducted, of criminal, are criminals, are more likely to become criminals themselves. I don't know why I made that so hard. Sorry. So basically, you can put that into sports, is to say, if in my genes, or my parents were aggressive, then more likely I'm going to be more aggressive as well. If they had anger issues, then more likely I'm going to have anger issues. Stuff like that. So, and the biological instinct theory comes from fighting for survival and fighting for your territory, which in a way is it could go into sports theories too, because you're fighting for your territory if you think about it, especially when you're home. If you're playing home versus a team that usually beats you or you have beef with or something, then you're fighting for your territory, you're fighting for your fans, you're fighting for pride pretty much, and it's pretty much where the biological theory can come in. So researchers have found, there it is, I don't know why I wrote it down. Researchers have found that children whose biological parents were convicted, I wrote it conducted, convicted criminals are more likely to become criminals themselves. So biological components that make individuals more likely to behave in a social unacceptable way. In a way, you can also say that biological components can tend to make an individual behave in an acceptable way also. But I feel like that's more society and you learning from society. So those are my 3 slides about aggression and assertive. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit more. Thank you.
So our topic was aggression in sports, both male and female. So we were doing a slide on an article or a situation in today's sports that shows this. We chose 2, obviously, since we have to do male and female. The male one that we did choose, Jamal Reed, an Oregon State basketball player. What kind of happens in this video is that he thinks that he should get a call and he doesn't. So he goes after the referee and he trips him. And then we have Elizabeth Lambert, a pretty well-known article. New Mexico women's soccer. Throughout the entire game, she has multiple different situations where she does use aggression. And what we kind of decided, or we kind of defined earlier, is that aggression is intentionally trying to hurt someone else, another living being. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at these and try to why they would be aggression versus assertion. Okay, so this is the basketball. He should have got the foul, and he doesn't. And this is where here's a punch. This is probably the most infamous one. We took a look at these 2 videos, and the reason why these videos are showing more aggression rather than assertion is because they go right after the other person to intentionally hurt them instead of trying to achieve some type of goal that they're aiming towards, or by accident, if they're both going for the ball, go specifically after the player and try to hurt them. We, as a group, also wanted to discuss with you coping with aggression. One of the hypotheses about coping with aggression is that if you purge that aggression into other things, like other activities, you won't feel the need to act aggressively towards someone else, towards another being. This hypothesis itself isn't widely supported because I also believe that if you act out on your aggression, that's just going to make you more aggressive. We went over how coaches can help players cope with aggression. We did positive reinforcement, which is coaches could offer praise or rewards for not acting out on your aggression, for controlling temper during game situations. We also did role models. Introduced the players to positive role models that can do the sport, that can compete without using aggression, are still players. There's consequences. Obviously, offenders, you're going to want to give them consequences for acting out on their aggression, or else they're going to keep doing it. Goals. This is mainly talking about coping with a loss, coping with a failure, an outcome that the player wasn't too happy with, teaching them how to handle that. Aggressive. A pre-game talk. Coaches should include a message that is violence. Pretty straightforward. So that's coping with aggression.
Differences in gender aggression. are, when comparing male and female athletes, it seems males are the dominant players. It's always believed that males display more hostile aggression in sports. Um, for this reason, Widmeyer explained that males, both athletes and non-athletes, demonstrate more aggressive behavior tendencies than their female counterparts. This could be for the simple fact that males have a higher ratio of testosterone hormones in their biological makeup than females do. For this being a major driving force as to why men can be seen as more aggressive than females. It's been a proven fact for decades, well, forever, that men have more aggressive tendencies than women in general because of the testosterone hormone. Male athletes tend to have more anger during games, or they display more anger during games, rather. They tend to want to inflict pain on their opposition during times of frustration more than female athletes. Men are looked at as more macho, and they're expected to become violent, and this expectation is there so that they're going to help improve the financial aspect of sports. Many fans come to athletic events to just to see fights and just to see people, tear up each other. We don't come to football games to see our opponents, or I'm sorry, to see our favorite team throw pillows at each other. We come to see them, the quarterback get tackled. We come to see, the linemen, tear some stuff up. So we don't come to see for people to just play patty cake. We want to see people be aggressive, be forceful, and actually do damage. You can look at a wrestling match. We don't want people to just come out there and be friends. We want to see them really do something and make it exciting for us. It was said that players were benched in certain sports fields for not being aggressive enough. In the NHL, they expect the players to be aggressive. They expect them to be willing to fight. And in the book, it demonstrated that players were basically taken out of the lineup because they didn't want to participate in violent acts. They wanted to just play the game and call it good. Unfortunately, this is not a thing to do in the NHL because, again, fans come to see fights. People come to see hockey games, yes, for the sport, but also to see fights. They expect people to fight. So with a player not willing to fight, that means you're not going to be a participant in the NHL, and I guess your career will not be prolonged. So this being said, it makes it seem like males are being held to a higher standard than females because of the aggressive factor. Female aggression. Female athletes are not comfortable with hurting other players. When asked by coaches, they don't get me wrong. There are some females out there that want to do damage also and not show mercy during games, but the majority usually stay away from violent activities and try to be fair and try to have the team player attitude rather. Female aggression is not looked at as feminine, but masculine, and is not celebrated by the media, coaches, or even peers. The idea in sport is to play hard but remain as ladylike as possible. For a long time, people criticize women being aggressive and playing like men and not remaining feminine. For a long time, people were talking about women who dunked in the NBA or who dunked in high school, and that was just not ladylike. It was frowned upon. I remember that during my time in high school, but now things have changed, And there's more females who are actually out there trying to do that, i.e., Brittany Griner and former WNBA player Lisa Leslie. Um, but anyway, sports, females are motivated by success than emotions of anger and frustration. Unlike the male athletes, um, they use their frustration to make them work harder, and this helps them along the way to succeed and to get their goal of winning a game. This demonstration of aggression would be considered instrumental aggression, where the purpose is to accomplish a goal and to win the game, as I stated. Aggression in sports from a Christian view. There's a false idea for some groups that sports can lead to aggression for both men and women. This may be seen as forbidden. Well, let's look at it from someone's point of view. According to Scott Jonas, playing sports for women leads to aggression that would eventually cause issues within their marriage relationship. Yes and no. Women who show aggression in sports is totally different from women showing aggression in their relationship. The two don't necessarily go hand in hand, so I beg to differ about that. Sports and home life is different. To be aggressive in your home life is not necessarily the best thing, but I don't see that stemming from a sports point of view, because women just tend to be that way because they don't want to be controlled. I'm just being honest. But anywho, the Bible does not speak against women playing sports or becoming aggressive because of it, but it does say to be angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down on your wrath, and that is in Ephesians 4:26, and that can go for any aspect of your lives. Aggression in sports from a Christian perspective continue. For male athletes, being aggressive in sports is controversy as well, but looked upon as more acceptable. Even though sports have been viewed as an avenue for aggression, groups have looked into turning it around for helping athletes to be more Christ-like on the field, helping to be more team players, being examples. I've even seen people after a game of being extremely aggressive were actually kneeling down before they got off the field with even their opponents praying. So I don't think that completely is a problem to be a Christian and an athlete. I think that's an awesome thing when you're able to be an athlete and also demonstrate being a Christian. MMA Christian fighters look to be aggressive for competition purposes, but in an article written called Jesus Didn't Tap Out, the emphasis on precise and controlled aggression foreshadows the discourage of mixed martial arts and fans, many of whom compare MMA to chess and report enjoying the sport for its high level technical skills. I'm not personally an MMA fan. Seems cool, but never actually been to a match. I assume that it's highly aggressive because of the nature of the sport, but I have heard that there are many athletes that are Christians in the MMA world. Manny Pacquiao is a big one, and he doesn't seem to be allowing his aggression to proceed him out of the match arena. So for me, I don't really feel that may be an issue here, but it also seems like other players or other athletes of the MMA fighting groups tend to be not as aggressive either. So Learning about what the fans say about sports makes a difference in how aggression is perceived. Christian or non-Christian, aggression is in the eyes of the beholder. And I definitely agree that is true. Again, there are many athletes out there that are Christians and they completely turn off their aggression once they get off the field. Another famous player or Christian athlete would be Tim Tebow. He seems to be on fire for God, but he doesn't allow his issues on the field or any other arena that he may be in progress off the field. But another scripture I want to leave you all with is do not hesitate. Do not hasten in your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosom of fools. Again, it's saying that you really do not want to remain in anger. You want to let it go so that you're able to remain free and not bound by that anger, because anger doesn't do anything for you but cause heartache and pain and stress for everyone else around you. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a lot. And again, remember to be angry and sin not.